Amen.
All right. So I talked about here, I don't know, several weeks ago, I asked what kind of things you guys would like to learn about. I mentioned here, after a while, we're going to start learning about the life of Jesus at some point, and literally going through one of the Gospels and going through each point in his life and just talking about it and why it matters. But I also had a suggestion of someone wanted to learn about Esther. I had a suggestion of Sampson. We'll probably cover both of those, but the first one I'm going to cover is Sampson. I'm going to start him tonight. This is going to be a few weeks study. I covered 2 chapters in what we're going to cover tonight. And I'm going to be honest with you, this might go really, really fast, or we might not get through it. I didn't know exactly how to write this down and see how long it lasts. Because I'm hoping for a little bit more open discussion through this and just see how everything plays out. Tonight is a trial run because I'm trying to figure out between Sampson and Esther how to do the Jesus lessons as well. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read a couple verses. I went through, read the story, and I kind of broke it down how I want to discuss it. So I'm going to read it directly out of the Bible, and then you will, I'll talk about it a little bit. We'll all kind of open discuss, and then move on to the next section. I'll start with Judges 13 is the book. You guys don't have your Bible with you, but if you want to look it up when you get home, read over what we're going to go over next week and be like, aha, I know more than Grant, that's fine. But, so Judges 13 is where Samson's story begins. And it starts off with the birth of Samson. And verse 1 says, the Israelites again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord handed them over to the Philistines 40 years. Alright, so Israel in the Old Testament went back and forth like, we need God, we don't need God, back and forth. And every time they decided they did not need God, it did not end up very well for them. And I think we can look at the Israelites and see that in everyone's people around us life. I mean, you get away from God and start doing stuff, it probably ain't going to end that great. And then we end up going back to God. But we're humans, it ends up going the opposite direction once again normally if we aren't careful, and we just do back and forth. I find it kind of funny because I've been a person to do this myself, and then I look at the Israelites and I'm like, oh, how are they so dumb? And I'm like, oh, how was I so dumb? But in verse 2 it tells us 2 through 8, there was a certain man, so this is a guy who is in Israel, who is an Israelite. There is a certain man from Zorah, from the family of Dan. So the 12 tribes of Israel, one of them was legit just called Dan, the tribe of Dan. There's many other ones, 11 other ones, obviously. But whose name was Manoah. I'm not sure. I'm going to butcher some names in this, and I apologize. His wife was unable to conceive.
Someone's got murdered.
That was a big scream. There's an unhappy tribe. His wife was unable to conceive and had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, it is true that you are unable to conceive and have no children, but you will conceive and give birth to a son. Now please be careful not to drink wine nor beer or eat anything unclean, for indeed you will conceive and give birth to a son. You must never cut his hair, because the boy will be a Nazirite to God from birth, and he will begin to save Israel from the power of the Philistines. Then the woman went and told her husband. A man of God came to her. He looked like an awe-inspiring angel of God. I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name. He said to me, you will conceive and give birth to a son. Therefore do not drink wine or beer, and do not eat anything unclean, because the boy will be a Nazirite to God from birth until the day of his death. So the angel obviously came to her. She didn't know where he came from. She didn't ask. He just told her, hey, you're unable to have children. Congratulations, you're going to have a kid named, or he doesn't tell her what to name him. But you're going to have a kid, and he's going to be a Nazirite I should have done a little research into this. I actually meant to, and I forgot to right now. My research was going to be Ask Dad because he's a smart guy. But he's my go-to guy when I need information. If he don't have it, then I go to Googling.
Wikipedia?
Yes, not Wikipedia. First thing they teach you in college is don't use Wikipedia for information when it comes to
That's
needing
the
it.
first thing
Till
they taught us in
college?
high school.
What?
So it took you till college to figure it out?
Well, I mean,
Oh wait, I forgot you're homeschooled.
I was homeschooled, so normally I had to look
What
at
is
like
that
an
supposed to
old
mean?
book. Mom's like, I had this book from the 80s. You can look stuff up in here. We have world books at my house. If you don't know what a world book is,
Hey, I'm homeschooled and I know how to use
world books were the internet before the internet.
Anything.
I know, but exactly why I don't.
But, alright.
Yeah.
But, so, this boy, or Sampson as we know him, this child is going to be a Nazirite. Nazirite was not supposed to touch any wine, alcohol, anything like that. They weren't to cut their hair. And it was all in honor to God, this whole thing.
It was a vow.
It was a vow to God to serve Him. And why didn't you cut your hair? I'm really not sure. I can understand the whole wine thing. God does not like drunkenness, so just stay away from it. And not touch unclean stuff. God, in the Bible, He did not like unclean stuff. And that's just, honestly, in my opinion, when it comes to that kind of stuff, God was just telling people how to be healthy. He wasn't supposed to touch dead stuff and stuff. I'm not in good mind going to tell anyone like, oh, Cole, look at that rotten thing, go play with it. It's just common sense. So God just tells people, don't do that.
How dumb do you have to be?
Well, he said don't eat anything unclean.
Yeah, don't eat unclean stuff either. But dead stuff, I'm telling that in particular for later
What
on
if
thing.
You just killed it.
If you just killed it, it's fine.
If it's
just,
rotting in a ditch, no, stay away
don't
from
pick
it.
up roadkill. Common sense.
Unless you
But
just-
also the unclean stuff that you weren't supposed to eat. And also most unclean things weren't that healthy to eat. Pork and stuff. Pork is delicious, don't get me wrong. I love pork. But I will tell you, pork is not as healthy as chicken.
Grilled chicken hits different.
I won't argue with that. But
You have to put ranch on it though, or else it's not good.
Oh my god.
I think chicken's good without it.
No. Buffalo sauce all the way.
Alright. But all this was told to her directly. I will use, I don't know.
Peanut butter.
I'll use Davy. Let's say Davy is, let's go for 10 years into the future. She is married at this point, and an angel goes to her, is like, hey, you're going to have a kid, and all this stuff. Let's put Davy in this lady's shoes. He tells her directly what to do. Very simple directions. They weren't that hard. They fit in 2 verses. So Davy obviously knows what's up. I just told her that. I'm not the angel. But the angel just told her that. And then she goes to her husband, and we pick up in verse 8. She goes to the husband and tells him, hey, I don't really know where this guy came from, but this is exactly what he told me. She told him exactly what he said. But this Manoah here, Manoah prayed to the Lord, this is in verse 8, and said, please, Lord, let the man of God you sent come again to us and teach us what we should do for the boy who will be born. God listened to Manoah, and the angel of God came again to the woman. She was sitting in the field, and her husband Manoah was not with her. The woman ran quickly to her husband and told him, the man who came to me the other day has just come back. So Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he asked, are you the man who spoke to my wife? I am, he said. So, Manoah and his wife. Manoah didn't trust his wife worth a lick. He's like, all right, you just told me these things, but I need God to tell me these things. And then she's like, hey, Davy goes to her husband. The dude I talked to just the other day, he's back. He goes to him, are you the dude that talked to my wife? I guarantee his wife was like, are you kidding me right now? I just told you this.
He was a little slow on the uptake.
Yeah, he did not trust his wife very well. Don't marry someone who doesn't trust you like that. Just words of advice. But, so we pick back up. It gets even worse for this guy. He said, I am. Then Manoah asked, when your words come true, when your words come true, what will be the boy's responsibilities and work? The angel of the Lord answered Manoah, your wife needs to do everything I told her. She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine or drink wine or beer, and she must not eat anything unclean. Your wife must do everything I have commanded her. The angel, I want to say that this angel was like, I already told her this, she has told you, but he still didn't get it. I mean, he's like, what do we do? And the angel's like, everything I told your wife. And from then on, we got verse 15. Please stay here, Manoah told him, and I will prepare you a young goat. In 16, the angel of the Lord said to him, if I stay, I won't eat your food, but if you want to prepare a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord. Manoah did not know that he was an angel of the Lord at this time. So he's like, dude, he's like, hey, you give me some great news. Let me feed you a goat. Who doesn't want fed a goat, right? I mean, that's what I always do when I have guests.
Does anyone actually have goat here?
It's so good.
I did.
What is
You
this?
have had
I
goat?
had
I've never had goat.
It's so good.
Well, we had
Sorry?
some,
It's
I've
the
had
greatest
goat ice
meat.
cream. Ate goat?
yeah, like ate a goat, real goat. We
See,
had
I
some guy from
Yes,
Africa make
I
it for us.
think it
So
would
good.
taste like it would smell.
It's just really good. It's hard to
Like
chew.
it did that
Goat milk ice cream though. That's pretty good.
goat milk smells bad to me.
But the ice cream is really good.
I would try
It does
goat.
sound good.
I mean,
It's so
Oh
good.
yeah, I've tried anything once.
Just not, I've never had ice cream with it.
Alright, so the angel just told him, hey, I'm not going to eat it, but you can prepare it to God. Manoah does not know that he is of God. And I would like to point out, these people are like 40 years away from God at this time. They've been under the hand of the Philistines for 40 years at this point. So it's been a hot minute since any of them have been very close to God. They've kind of forgot what's up. So we can't really look at him and be like, man, he was such an idiot. Because 40 years is a long time to go away from God. So in verse 17, then Manoah said to him, what is your name, so that we may honor you when your words come true? And the angel says, why do you ask my name? The angel of the Lord asked him, since it is beyond your understanding. That kind of puzzled me. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what it exactly means that his name was beyond his understanding.
Was this Jesus? Is this an Old Testament?
Was the angel Jesus?
Yeah, I wonder. It's
I don't
not
know.
capitalized though. Usually it is.
It could have been. Does anyone have any ideas why the angel's name would be beyond their understanding? I'm open to anything. Like I said, I don't have an answer.
His name is, I don't know.
It's a pretty good
We
name.
need a commentary.
IDK. That's his name.
I'm guessing because since he's from the different realms, like heaven, they wouldn't be able to understand because they've been so far away from God.
It could be.
The 9 realms.
My first instinct was the angel it didn't matter. The angel's like,
I don't know how you
I'm not
know
here for
someone's
that.
name you didn't ask.
Or saying that the credit should not go to the angel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. It's saying about me.
His name was Brad.
I have a girl.
We're not here to name the angel. We're discussing why he did.
I have a girl in my school named Giada. She's from Italy. And that Giada. And that name is beyond my comprehension.
So we're saying, so the answer is the angel is Italian.
A lot more common than Giada.
Can I be named Giada? That sounds pretty
I
thought her
think
name
it's
was
like
Giada.
no, because it's obviously.
No, it's Giada. That's actually weird.
Yeah, I want to say Julie might be right. We can obviously see how far away these people have gotten from God, that maybe the angel just knew Like Victoria and Julie both said, that like the angel didn't want the credit for this or anything like that, so just leave it where they couldn't credit the angel, just some random dude. But I don't know. I might have actually wrote down a note about that. Let me check. No, I didn't know on my notes either. I didn't think I did.
I'm gonna go home and look that up.
Julie will have answers for us next week.
Where are you going?
I will be here. But she said she's gonna go home and look it up.
Oh.
I'll bring it back. I'll bring back the answer.
Yeah.
Alright,
From the farm.
so verse 19.
Never mind.
So Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered them on a rock to the Lord, who did something miraculous. While Manoah and his wife were watching, when the flame went up from the altar to the sky, the angel of the Lord went up in its flame. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell down face down on the ground, and the angel of the Lord did not appear again to Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah realized that it had been an angel of the Lord. So they was like, well, that was an angel. And like, I would like to think I would have picked up on that faster. But I don't know, it took them a hot minute to figure out. It took the angel literally just like disappearing into the fire to be like, whoa, we just seen an angel. Instead, just a random guy that's telling them that they're going to have a baby.
I'm curious, what form did he like show himself?
He would, like the angel, he would look like a man.
What? Well, like, when I imagine an angel, I imagine like some sparkly dude coming out.
Have you seen what
That's the way I
they-
did it in their true
Yeah, that's weird.
It's insane.
He would have
We like
looked,
that interview thing with that picture.
he would have looked just like us because they thought he was a normal dude. They wanted to feed him a goat. I mean, it would have been like,
Yo, can I go?
it would have been like Logan just being out in my field and be like, hey, you're gonna have a kid.
Want to go?
What? Yeah, you know, I'll trade you your news for a goat. But yeah, he would have just looked like a normal guy. But the next thing makes me realize how far away from God these people were.
Oh, it was bad.
Because they realized that it was an angel of the Lord. The next verse, we're certainly going to die, he said to his wife, because we have seen God. So, God sends an angel to talk to them about this child. Now, they're like, oh great, this is great information, let's give you a goat. And then they're like, oh, God's going to kill us.
Nice.
I don't understand their concept here.
It's not their concept. Read the next verse. It's his concept.
Well, yes. Yes, that's true. Julie is correct. I have that written down in my
It's
notes.
just his density.
Yeah, the husband, in my opinion, was not a very smart guy. And the wife isn't named either. I thought she had a name.
Maybe just
It's just Sampson's mom. But in the next verse, 23, but his wife said to him, if the Lord had intended to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted the burnt offering and the grain offering from us, and he would not have shown us all these things or spoken to us like this. She's a little smart. So if we're still using Davy as an example, Davy is smarter than whoever she's married to in 10 years.
likely.
Because he thinks that they're going to die, even though God gave them this awesome miracle. It just doesn't make sense to me. But once again, like I said, these people were 40 years under the Philistines and away from God. Over 40 years, because before the 40 years they were away from God, and that's why God let all this stuff happen to them. So there's no telling how many years they've been away. And these people, I don't know. Julie might be able to answer this for me. How long were people living at this time? Normal lifespans? Because if you think about it,
It would
these,
have been normal at the time.
well, it'd been normal at the time. Thank you.
It's like 800-year-old people.
In early.
Right now?
No, sorry, no, I said it like
No,
that.
I'm
Back in
not
the
at
day.
this point.
Not at this
That
point.
would really suck.
There's, and
I
then when
would
it's,
think it would be more like normal.
okay, so let's think about it like this. This is a thought that just came to me here.
700 years old.
My right side.
It's like
Let's think about it like this. Normal people, the average age of like, oh, you're probably not going to have kids anymore is 40. Alright? These people are obviously still thinking about having kids, but can't have kids. So they might have been born in this whole time frame where God wasn't really a thing for the Israelites, where they had turned their back on God. So if you think about it like that, this could have been something like they figured out it was God or an angel. This could have been something that like their grandparents told them about, and they're like, "Oh, I've heard about this in old stories." So that makes a little more sense to me on why they were so blind to it. Because I mean, they could have been born under the Philistines' reign, for all we know. It doesn't say how old they were. They could have been in their 20s or 30s.
Yeah, because David lived to be over 100, but not like, I don't think like ridiculously over 100, but he was alive after this.
Yeah.
It
So
wasn't like 900-year-old people.
yeah, in the very, very early Bible, there was the 900-year-olds. But no, they did not age. They were not old for 800 years. That would have been terrible. Just got to 80 and then just 800 years of being ancient. But verse 24, the last verse of the chapter. No, actually it's 24 and 25. So the woman gave birth to a son, and they named him Sampson. The boy grew, and the Lord blessed him. Then the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshcol. But so she has Sampson, he is now growing up. And then it jumps to chapter 14, where we get into the actual story of Sampson and not his birth. Which, it just throws us right into, I'm guessing Sampson, he's around the age of, I'd say 18 to 20 here, would be my guess. Victoria's age. Yeah, he's looking for a wife. I'm going to put him in Victoria's age or something.
Yes, sir.
Oh, he liked the sweet honey.
Yeah, Sampson liked sweet honey, so it's true.
Yeah, she had honey on me.
Alright. He liked sweet honeys and sweet honey.
Well, I mean, honey is in the story of Samson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have Samson is, let me see what verses I want to read. Verse 4 here. Samson went down to Timnah and saw a young Philistine woman there. He went back and told his father and his mother, I have seen a young Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as a wife. But
Didn't even say please.
we're going to talk about that here in a second. But his father and mother said to him, can't you find a young woman amongst your people and amongst our people? Stutter. Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines for a wife? But Samson told his father, get her for me, she is the right one for me. Now his father and mother did not know this was from the Lord, who wanted the Philistines to provide an opportunity for a confrontation. So we have Samson. He goes down, finds this girl, finds a sweet honey, as Jesse would say.
Yes, sir. I know all the secrets.
So
Obviously.
Samson is, we know,
Oh, man.
15 years and counting.
we good?
Frick.
We know that he is a single child. This was the only child they had. And instantly we kind of know that Samson was a spoiled kid. I mean, these people are like, oh, Samson's from God. Samson can't do anything wrong. Samson gets whatever he wants. Because he goes to the Philistines. There are plenty of Israel girls that they would rather him have, but he finds this this Philistine girl, and he's like, hey, I want this. And he tells his parents, because back then, like, the parents kind of dealt with that. Like, oh, you go to her father, give him a goat. They were good at giving away goats.
If it was only that easy.
And how do goats not go extinct?
Good
No,
call.
Anytime someone comes to their field, here's a joke.
So they're like, hey, we probably shouldn't do this. And Samson just tells his dad off, like, hey, this is what I want, you do it for me. And the dad's just like, okay.
Well, technically it would have been against God's law to marry into the Philippines.
Yeah, it would have been against everything. But God was going to use it. God uses, I don't know if this was a mistake or what. If God used Samson's mistake or used Samson's weakness, but God was going to use it. It says that this was an opportunity for confrontation with the Philistines. As the angel told the mom back when, Samson was supposed to come back and stop the Philistines. They were supposed to be free after Samson. So Samson's obviously a spoiled brat, and his parents don't have much of a backbone and just let him have whatever they want, or whatever he wants. In verse 5, Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and they're going to talk to the girl and her parents. And Samson gets off by himself. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but we know that from a thing here in just a second. They was on their way, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah. The angel told his parents earlier, he's not supposed to be around anything that grows on vines, wine, alcohol. And now you find Samson in the vineyards down here where he's not supposed to be. He's in Philistine territory. And suddenly a young lion came roaring at him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as you might have torn a young goat. Oh, there's a lot of goats. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. And then he went and spoke to the woman because she seemed right to Samson. So, you know, it doesn't specifically say that, oh, Samson left his parents and went through a vineyard. But his parents did not know about the lion incident. So we know that he got away. Like, he's like, oh, I can just see Samson be like, oh, I'm going to take this shortcut and walk this way through the vineyard. And it's probably like, okay, do whatever you want, Samson. But he got in this confrontation with a lion. And we just assume, it doesn't say, but I guarantee Samson knows all his rules. Like, he knows, don't cut your hair, about the wine, about all that, right? But he wants to get as close as he can to all this. He likes cutting it close. I mean, he likes finding trouble. He goes, finds the Philistine women. He goes to the vineyard. And the whole story of Samson, we'll figure out, he likes cutting it as close to the line as he possibly can. Samson likes trouble. Human nature likes trouble. I mean, there's lots of things that you all do that I do where we probably do things close to what we shouldn't be doing, but it's not close enough where we can kind of tell ourselves it's okay. Let me find where I'm at. But this gives opportunities for the devil to attack us. When we get close to sin, even if we don't get into sin, I mean, you get close enough, I mean, it kind of, for better words, sin has almost like a gravity pull on you. Like, oh, I got really close. The next time you might get a little closer, and where's the stopping point? Where do you just keep going into sin farther and farther? And this lion come upon Samson. Luckily, Samson's the world's strongest man of all time. He had no problem taking out the lion. But it came close. And even if Samson took out the lion, this lion that came upon him still kind of started his downfall entirely. So he might beat the lion in the short time, but he did not beat the lion in the long run. So in verse 8, after some time, so he got done talking to this girl, and the whole thing in the old times was they had just like we do now, they have kind of an engagement time where the girl like gets ready to be a wife and learns how to be a wife, and so the man goes off and does his thing, she gets ready, and he comes back and gets her. So during this time, after some time, when he returned to marry her, he left the road to see the lion's carcass. There was a swarm of bees with honey in the carcass. He scooped some honey into his hands and ate it as he went along. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it. But he did not tell them that he had scooped the honey out of the lion's carcass.
Sick prank, bro.
Yeah, Samson is a gross dude. I mean, there is no way that I'm going to see a beehive, probably anywhere, and get honey. But especially, like, see a beehive in a rotting rib cage. I can just imagine, like, everyone's like, if you are a hunter or you have a family member that's a hunter, we've all seen like someone guts a deer open, like takes the guts out, and then the rib cage is there, all open. I can just imagine like the beehive up in the rib cage.
I was
The
imagining
gut's
the lion's
still in
mouth.
there.
Yeah, but they would rot away quicker. I can see it like in the bones and stuff. But either way, it's gross. I don't want this honey. But Samson's like, oh, honey, let's just get some of this. Sweet honey, it's great. And he decides, I'm gonna take some to my parents, because he's a whack, I guess. I don't know. I read this story, I'm like, man, me and Samson
Honey tastes
could
like
not.
honey, okay? No matter where it comes from.
I read this story, and I'm like, me and Samson could not be friends. And I think Samson had a lot of pride, which is a thing a lot of us, I mean, maybe not you guys, but I know I struggle with it. Sometimes you think you're a little bit better than other people, or you want to see what you can do, or what you have done, and be prideful about stuff like that. Samson wanted to go see, like, he's like, I'm going to check out that lion. Remember when I killed that lion? That was pretty neat. So he goes down there, back through the vineyards once again, back in the trouble area. So he gets that honey, gives it to his parents, which is just, like I said, he is a weird dude. And technically, he wasn't supposed to touch dead stuff. If he wanted to be real careful, I guess he could have got honey out of it without touching dead stuff, maybe. He either broke the rules here or came as close as he could. But he did not tell his parents about it, and they ended up eating it. So in verse 10, his father went to visit the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, as young men were accustomed to do. I guess the groom made a feast. So they were going to have a wedding party. These things lasted for days and days. 7 days normally, a whole week. When the Philistines saw him, they brought 30 men to accompany him. So the Philistines at this point, I mean, they are enemies, but they're not enemies at the same time, because these are her people. I mean, this was probably, I assume, some of her family. So let me tell you, Samson is, once again, he's an odd dude. Samson sees these guys, he's like, you know what, it'd be cool if I made up a riddle. I don't know what's up with Samson. But he's like, let me tell you a riddle. And Samson said to them, if you can explain to me during the 7 days of the feast and figure it out, I will give you 30 sets of clothes. It says 30 changes of linen and clothes. And I don't know what was up with Samson. Like, I'll bet you 30 sets of clothes that you can't figure out my riddle.
I bet that was a cultural thing. Like, their clothes would have been worth a lot, I bet.
Yeah, but why is he betting riddles?
30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes.
That'd be one for each. There was 30 guys. There's 30 Philistines.
Me and Samson.
So, and they're like, okay, we'll take you up on that. So tell us your verse, this is still in verse 13. Tell us your riddle, they replied. Let's hear it. And Samson, I don't know what his deal is. I just keep talking about Samson in a negative light. But he makes up his own riddle that doesn't even have an answer. Like, only he knows the answer because he made it up.
It's a sure way to win.
He thought so.
He's keeping those places close.
So I guess he's gonna surprise his wife. Like, look, I got us 30 changes of
Yeah, because
clothes.
the Philistines had to give him 30
Yeah.
changes of clothes.
So, verse 14. So he said to them, out of the eater came something sweet, and out of the out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet.
Honey.
Yes, you know the answer, but we just read about it. And so the thing he's looking for is out of the strong, and then what is something sweet?
How does someone find it out?
They
kill a lion that has a...
Like I said, I don't know what the deal is.
Elephant.
Like I said, Samson, in my opinion, is a weird dude. I don't know if he wanted to. I almost wonder, this is just me taking Samson out of context, since in my opinion, he got everything. He was kind of a spoiled guy. And this is 100%, don't take this factual, this is 100% just my thinking. And I want open discussion on this. Maybe you guys know something. But I think Samson was one of those type of people that just wanted people to think he was smart and like cool. Like, you meet those people that just talk this big talk and they end up getting annoying. Does anyone else know those type of people? Like, yeah?
I'm related to a few.
Okay. Don't say names.
Thanks.
You're on camera.
But I wonder if Samson wasn't that type of person. I don't know though. That's just kind of my idea. Because this seems like something that one of those type of people would do. Like, you'll never figure out my riddle. I'm so cool.
Like he had to have the best women. And
Yeah, he wanted just everything his way. Like I said, he was a big baby. So continuing that verse, I stopped right in the middle of it. After 3 days, they were unable to explain the riddle. Because it didn't have an answer, in my opinion. But verse 15, on the 4th day, they came to Samson's wife and told her this: persuade your husband to explain the riddle to us, and we will, or we will burn you and your father's family to death.
Or some clothes.
Did you invite us here to rob us? So they threatened his wife. Now looking at that, I wonder if these guys were not her family, because they were going to burn his family, or her family. So scratch that idea. Verse 16. So Samson's wife came to him, weeping, and said, "You hate me, and you don't love me. You told my people the riddle, but you haven't explained it to me." She's whining and nagging him, and he said, "I haven't even explained it to my father or my mother, so why should I explain it to you?"
which is a really weird. Like I would explain something to Zach before I would explain it to Mom and Dad.
Samson kind of confuses me. I don't know. Once again, I think he was a weird dude.
Like that's basically saying like I like my parents more.
I don't
than
hate on
you.
Samson, I just think he's weird. But
Samson's the
Not
new
enough
Jonah.
brains.
I'm telling you.
so in verse 17, she wept the whole 7 days, which would have been the last 4 days, the whole 7 days of the feast. And on the 7th day, he explained it to her because she had nagged him so much. Then she explained it to her people. So she cried, this festival's supposed to be awesome. I'll use Logan this time. Logan is getting married and he's having a 7-day festival, and it's supposed to be the time of his life. This is like his bachelor feast, and it's going to be awesome. And then his fiance just cries the whole time. Every time he sees her, she is whining and begging, and it is slowly driving Logan
That's when you
insane.
end the marriage.
Right then and there.
Logan is going on and just drove nuts. And on the 7th day, he cracks. He's like, "Okay, I'll tell you this." He only had one more day to go. So on the 7th day before she explained it to her people. On the 7th day before the sun sets, so that would have been the end of the day, the men of the city said to him, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson says the worst thing. My gentleman here, never call your wife this. So I'm going to say it how the King James says it because I find it hilarious. Mine updates the word a little bit. But so he said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer." So he called his wife or his fiance a heifer. And so if he hadn't used her to get the answer,
Now that's how you get one.
you would not know my riddle.
Mason, that wouldn't even work on me, okay?
Basically,
We're not here to start fights. We're talking about Samson. He's the weird guy, okay? Keep it that way.
apologize. With all due respect, Shelby, you are not a cow.
I would just like to say that will be in the recording. So I'm going to read that again. So if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not know my riddle. And from this point, Samson has snapped. He has, as I would call it, the biggest hissy fit of all time. Has anyone ever thrown does everyone know what a hissy fit is? Like a fit, Has anyone ever thrown a hissy fit?
Not since I was like 4.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. Alright, so Samson throws the biggest hissy fit of all time. Totally irrational. He's the one who made this bet, and they figured it out. Maybe not quite how Samson wanted them to, but they still figured it out. So they owe him 30 pairs of garments, or he owes them. So Samson's the strongest dude ever. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on him. He went down to Ashkelon and killed 30 of their men, 30 Philistines.
Why just kill them?
He killed 30 of them. He stripped them and gave their clothes to those who had explained the riddle to them in rage. So what's the rational idea? You go kill 30 dudes, take the clothes, and give them to the winners.
It's fake.
What if you just took one shirt, cut it into 30 pieces?
Oh my God.
30 changes of clothes. Yes.
Okay, this is my point of view, but what if you're just a guard and you just look in an alleyway and see a guy in his underwear? Dead. There's 30 of them. There's 30 of them just in the same street.
I'm just telling you,
What happened to you?
this is the biggest.
Samson again.
Okay, whenever you first said that, I kind of like, whenever he gave them to him aggressively, I kind of thought like he would just be throwing the clothes at them.
I don't know, but he gave them to them in rage.
That's how Victoria would.
And then Samson returned to his father's house.
In a rage is part of the next part. It's part of the next part. Next sentence.
Oh, Julie is correct. He gave them to them, period. In a rage, Samson returned to his father's house. So Samson has this giant hissy fit, bigger than any hissy fit you guys have ever thrown. I hope none of you had killed 30 people in a hissy fit. If you have, keep it to yourself, please. But he goes back to his father's house. I mean, he is steering. If I wanted to use Logan for this, Logan leaves his fiance behind after this and goes back to his home. And I just kind of imagine Samson being angry and just like, at this point, have you ever seen like a teenage movie where they like go in their bedroom and just like flop down their bed, just like yell into their pillow? Ugh.
No,
I can just see that being Samson.
I have a punching bag.
But like, he does this, and in my opinion, all of this was brought on by Samson. I mean, if he hadn't started this riddle, there's no reason to start this riddle, and then it ended up in him having to go on a berserk and killing 30 guys. But it also shows how strong Samson is. I mean, he could take out 30 dudes. But he went to his father's house in a rage, and his wife, like Samson just leaves. His wife just behind, I don't even know if they're married at this time, I guess they are, says his wife, just leaves her. And she's kind of like, what in the world? And they end up giving his wife to one of the guys who accompanied him. Like I don't know if it's a random dude at the wedding or his buddy.
Like his friend.
Yo, my guy.
Like, somebody offers you a wife.
Like, it's a weird story. I'll just be honest. And like, I'm excited to get into it, especially towards the end of Samson's story. That's where we're leaving off tonight, with Samson wifeless and at his house.
Self-sabotaging.
But I'm anxious to get farther into this story because why was this guy, so far, he has done nothing that makes me think this guy is something. Besides, he is really strong. But the Bible in the New Testament lists him in the list of the great men of God. I mean, he is top notch here. So far, he is not proving it. But once again, one thing that should tell me as a person, I mean, I know I'm far, far down the list. I mess up. You guys mess up. But God uses everyone. I mean, we can all kind of agree. I have a feeling that Samson is kind of an odd dude. But God used him. He is a great man of God. He is in the Hall of the Greats, if you want to call it.
Hall of the Great.
Hall of the Greats. That's just a term I used a long time ago. But God can use whoever he wants. God had plans for Samson before he was born. Samson was not one of a kind. God has plans for all of us before we're born. He can use us in any way possible. As long as we're willing to let him. And even if we mess up, Samson, we have studied him one night. I think there's like 6 chapters of Samson, maybe something like that. I'd say it'll last us another couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. But he's already messed up a lot and done things backwards a lot. But God's not done with him. And God is not done with him all the way till the end of his life. I mean, that is when God, I guess, is done with him. When he's gone, he's gone.
Imagine explaining someone's life in 6 chapters of a book.
Yeah.
Rip.
Just depends what you do. I mean, you got Julie's favorite character, Jonah. We can turn the camera off.
Say bye, people.
Bye.
Say bye.
Bye.